The first thing that we did is we did lots of research in the area of well-being and came up with a framework that basically identified 3 components of well-being that we would focus on. The first one was physical well-being of students. The second component was social-emotional, and that's an area that we've put lots of emphasis on: supports for mental health, supports for anti-bullying programs in our schools. All of those things are important pieces, obviously, for children to be able to be learning. And the last piece, the last component that we identified was cognitive well-being. And we think of cognitive as kind of that readiness to learn. And that's very much where we centered on the social-emotional skills. And I'll talk a little bit about how we got at that piece. Second thing was happening in the school district was that we were looking at our secondary schools in general. And we have students that essentially go on to 4 different pathways. Some of our students go on to university. Some of our students go on to what are called community colleges, some of them directly to the workplace, and some of them, we look after a very large percentage of children with special education needs. We have about an 11% identification rate in our school district. Some of those children, depending on their needs, go into a kind of a community living. And what we wanted to do as a school system is identify what are the kinds of characteristics and skills that we would like all of those students leaving our school districts to have to be successful in their careers, to be successful in their family and their work lives. And so that was a process that we started. For that process, we put together a community group that was made up of about half of them were staff people, so people from our schools, administration, some of our trustees, and the second half were community-based people. So they were some people from business and industry, they were some people from different associations that are connected, some of our post-secondary partners. And we got together and we decided that we would look at something that we would call exit outcomes. And exit outcomes are really those characteristics and skills that we'd like every student to be walking out the door. We have 30 secondary schools and 120 elementary schools that lead into those secondary schools. And we wanted to have a sense of what are we trying to produce in the end. Turned out to be a really interesting process. We looked at some of the literature. We looked at the literature around 21st century learners. We looked at things like employability skills. And we had this a number of brainstorming sessions. And what we came out with is very clear in the literature is that you can get caught up on the semantics and the nomenclature around these skills, because when you look at the individual words, there's probably 150 of them that are different ways of approaching this. And what we decided to do was to cluster the ideas into a feasible number that we thought that our system could deal with. And so we started that process, and we identified, I remember how many we identified originally, but we identified a number of characteristics, we identified a number of skills, and we went out for public consultation. So we sent it out to all of our school councils, which are parent councils that work in each of our schools. We put it out on our public website so that business people could respond to it. We brought in student leaders from our secondary schools and gave them an opportunity to say, what do you think? Have we got this right? I'll tell you a little bit more about the reaction from the students, because it was quite fascinating. Sometimes when we go out for consultation in our district, it doesn't get a lot of attention. For whatever reason, this really grabbed people. We had over 1,000 people provide input back, telling us, we think you have this right, we think it should be a little bit more over this. And at the end of the day, we identified 5 characteristics. Those 5 characteristics are, we said that we want every one of our students to be resilient. We want them to be globally aware. We want them to be collaborative. We want them to be goal-oriented. And we want them to be creative and innovative.